And now, your hosts, Sean Hastings, an independent filmmaker and screenwriter extraordinaire. Jonathan Solzbar, a writer, graphic designer, and voice actor. Together, these fine fellows form Cinema Filibuster. And welcome to Cinema Filibuster. I am Jonathan Solzbar.
And I am still Sean Hastings.
And today we are going to talk about movies, of course.
Well, imagine that.
But in the spirit of Halloween, or...
The spirit of Halloween. Good for you, John. I told him not to do it, but you know what? He pulled it off anyway. Bless his heart.
Okay, not in the spirit of Halloween.
Yes, John, it's ghoul to be here. Sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
A monstrously good time.
Okay, we're stopping that right now.
Okay.
Okay, that's that. That goes no further.
What we wanted to do is sort of trick-or-treat-ish.
Yeah.
But in the context of movies and TV shows.
Sure.
What scared the dog piddle out of you as a child?
Dog piddle. Well, a lot of
And
things.
vice versa, what scared it out of me?
Out of you, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be a scary movie per se, but maybe something in a movie that just scared you.
Well, I have an advantage, I think, because I grew up, I was a child in the 70s, and I think the 70s is probably the heyday of the horror movie. Everything in the 80s, I tend to think, was kind of a sad, not sad, but a glitzy copy of what happened in the 70s. I mean, in the 70s, you had Halloween, you had the original Friday the 13th, and then in the 80s, you had these Halloweens and Friday the 13th, and these Halloween and Friday the 13th rip-offs, and in the 70s, it was gritty, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, these were horrible, terrible, scarring psychologically to anyone that watched them.
Sounds like the 70s were scary.
They were. Well, I think the 70s movies were a direct repercussion of what we were going through in the 70s, with our malaise, as the president would say.
I was not even born yet. Why are we talking like we're from the South? Is it because of 1776?
No, it's because I am from the South.
It's because of that Civil War replica sword you have in your hand there.
It is, yes. You
can't see it, but Sean's got a movie prop. A prop that he greeted me with at the door.
I've got to threaten John with weapons.
He always has either his shotgun or a sword or a...
I've got to greet John with a weapon. It's,
Open the door.
It's how I say I care.
From a distance.
From a distance.
From a distance.
No.
Sorry.
No singing.
Well, this is supposed to be scary.
It's supposed to be scary. Well, yes.
All right, so we're going to start off with a movie that scared Sean, or parts of a movie that scared Sean, and we'll go back and forth. Sean, well, what would be your first?
The earliest thing I can remember, as far as watching a film, was something my dad and I watched, because my dad was, for some reason, really liked this movie as well, was Duel. In the United States, it was done for ABC television. It was an ABC movie, but in Europe, it was released as a theatrical film, and it really counts as Steven Spielberg's first theatrical film. It stars Dennis Weaver, and Dennis Weaver plays just a regular old businessman who's driving through the California desert to a business meeting and comes upon this truck. It's an old 60s model Peterbilt diesel, which is dragging a tanker truck behind it, and he passes it, and the driver's a sociopath and tries to kill him for the rest of the movie. For many years, I mean, even until I was a teen, I was scared of trucks. I was scared to walk in front of them. And my dad worked in an area where he was out in industrial areas a lot, and I would go with him to work sometimes, and we would park in front of trucks. And I mean, I would be sitting there in a cold sweat.
You thought they're just going to rev up and
come after me? Yeah,
is going to chase you.
Yeah, because in Duel you never see the driver, so the truck is the villain. You only see his arm, because at one point he waves Dennis Weaver around, and he into the path of an oncoming car trying to kill him.
Wow.
And it's and you see his boots, because they both go to at the very beginning, they're at a gas station together, and you see the guy's boots walking on the other side of the truck. So it wasn't like this was an anthropomorphized killing machine truck, but I could not walk around them. I mean, I would literally go behind the truck and duck under the trailer if I had to get from point A to point B. I would not go in front of it. I couldn't. I couldn't make my legs walk there. It was so traumatic. And to this day, Duel is one of my favorite movies, even now that I've grown up and I watch it. And of course, I have fond memories of watching it with my dad. But it did. It terrified me in a way that in a way that hit somewhere deep.
In a way that
affected you beyond the TV screen or the theater screen?
Much.
Well, that segues nicely into Jaws. Which was a film I should never have seen.
Oh, my.
At an impressionable age.
Steven Spielberg's other. And an interesting connection between Jaws and... at the end of Duel, when the truck goes... and at the end, of course, maybe this is a spoiler,
Spoilers.
so... at the end, of course, Dennis Weaver wins by tricking the truck into hitting his car and going over a cliff. Well... Spielberg added the sound of a dinosaur roaring as it goes over. I mean, you could say it almost sounds like twisting metal, but it's kind of got a roar to it. It's creepy. He did the same thing in Jaws. When the shark is blown up and you see a section of the fin come out of the blood, he put that same roar in as it went under to collate to the duel, because he saw the duel and Jaws is kind of the same. The duality. He did. He saw them as kind of kissing cousins, and they both, story-wise, they're the same. You know, if you look at it from just a structural point of view, it's man versus indomitable thing. Man blows up indomitable thing.
I can see that parallel. I can certainly see the parallel in the paralyzing effects that Jaws had on me. The characters are being hunted. Mm-hmm. And the person that you think is probably best equipped to fight off the shark ends up getting eaten.
Oh, Quint,
this would be
yeah.
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw.
And he's just not like chomp, he's gone. It's like he's sliding down the boat. There's water in the boat.
And he's bitten in half.
The shark is out of the water partially.
In the boat.
And it's clamped down on his legs, and he's still alive.
Oh, yeah. Well, the one, and this actually almost falls back onto my friend Casey and I. Casey's the biggest Jaws fan in the world. He's a bigger Jaws fan than I am. We use it as a quote when the shark bites down on him and he spits blood up and he goes, oh, and then goes under.
Is that your quote?
That's the quote. We would do that anytime something horrible would happen to one of us or on screen. We'd go, oh. And we'd know what we meant because, it's the Quint spitting up blood. But he does. Robert Shaw had a mouthful of blood and he just spat it and it went into his face.
I do remember that.
That was like, that might have been 10 frames.
That was a visceral moment.
And it was like, ooh.
Yeah, so sharks.
And the one other thing that Jaws has the most effective stinger in movie history. And stingers are those things, like when the killer pops out of a closet or a cat jumps out and you freak out. It's the scene where Brody and Hooper are on his boat and they find Ben Gardner's boat after it's been attacked. And Hooper goes for a swim underneath to find evidence of the shark, and Ben Gardner's head comes floating out.
See, I don't even remember that. It must have been so terrifying that I forgot.
And he doesn't even come out that fast. If you turn the sound down, he just rolls out. But they put that squeak sound on it, and in my mind's eye as a child, I remember that head flying out of that boat on an air ramp. I remember, choom, there's his head. Nope, it's just a casual, it rolls into shot. And it's Ben Gardner missing an eye. And even to this day,
Jaws affected you too?
It did. Oh, it did, absolutely. That is the most effective stinger in movie history, is Ben Gardner's head coming out of his boat.
Well, we both share Jaws, but what's another one that resonates with you in all the wrong ways?
Well, of course, going back to my youth, this is another movie that came out. This was a Robert Wise film, written by Michael Crichton, weirdly enough, because Jurassic Park. This was a movie called The Andromeda Strain. The Andromeda Strain was...
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's about an American satellite that is sent up into orbit to collect space material to be brought back for research, and it ends up bringing back an organism that is counterproductive to life, to organisms on the planet. It kind of like it. What the organism did is it clotted your entire blood system in a little less than 2 seconds. I mean, literally, you opened up the thing and you fell over dead. It was 100% terminal and quick reacting, and it was spreading. So they, this group of doctors and scientists went in, got the probe, and took it back to this research facility called Wildfire. Very high tech, but very Spartan. And just something about the whole, it's just a very sedate, very, oppressive feel. But the one thing in the movie that really scared me, oddly enough, was one of the doctors had epilepsy, and she was trying to hide it from everyone, so nobody knew she had it, because if they found out, they wouldn't let her work on the project. And they're having a breakout. There's the alarms going off, and the organism is starting to eat rubber, and it's starting because it's evolved, and now it's eating rubber. The rubber seal's holding it in, so now it's about to get out, and they're running around, and she runs into a red light flashing, and which triggers an epileptic seizure, and she starts seizuring on the floor, and everybody freaks out, going, "Oh my God, it's Andromeda!" But the doctor goes, "No, she has epilepsy." And he's begging somebody to come back with some sodium. Is it sodium amytal? No, it's phenobarbital. He's begging somebody to come back with some phenobarb to hit, because that's what I believe that you use to stop a seizure. And he's begging somebody, no, hurry, somebody come get me something. And finally a nurse brings him some stuff. But her seizure in that one little scene of the movie just went all over me like, yeah. And the whole movie's a terrifying concept of an organism that can kill you in 2 seconds, especially with the Ebola problem that we're having now.
Yeah.
But yeah, seizures and bacteria.
Seizures and bacteria and viruses. Oh my.
Oh my. All right, your turn. What do you got?
Well, this seems so tame in comparison.
Fear is not reasonable.
I don't know if I mentioned this at all in an earlier podcast. I forget, but The Princess Bride.
Terrifying film. The Dread Pirate Roberts made me wet my underwear, I can tell you.
Well, so I saw this when I was young enough not to understand that it was funny. And
interesting. That's an interesting precept.
There are a lot of comedies that, taken out of context, are quite terrifying. And this was one of them, because when Wesley is captured and he's being tortured, he's having years of his life sucked away.
Right.
And the horrible screaming. And
tell you what, that scream was pretty. The scream of ultimate suffering. Oh, heck yeah. My heart made that sound the night my father died. Yeah, heck yeah.
So without understanding, I don't know that I saw the movie from the beginning. That might have. I didn't realize it was a story being told. But it just.
I mean, was it Wesley writhing around on the deal? Because, see, I'm looking at it from the precept. I saw it as a comedy the first time, and I loved it. So, what do you? I mean, what exactly do you think?
The six-fingered man is torturing him. It's not Humperdinck. I forget.
It's Christopher Guest's character. I can't remember. Yeah.
He's so calm, and we look at it now and say, "Oh, he's hilarious." Well, he's so calm.
Well, he's a sociopath. I mean, he is definitely a full-on. And please, be honest.
He's having a conversation with somebody very normal and nuanced, and yet he's talking about sucking his life away, and I was used to bad guys are bad.
Yeah, demonstratively so, yeah.
This guy just creeped me out by how collected he was.
Well, think about this, and I think this is not having the context of it being a funny film. Think of that same scene, a tormentor and a guy who's sucking his life away, but think of it as a Nazi and somebody from a concentration camp. And just do the whole scene, same dialogue, same everything. It would be terrifying.
Suddenly it's not so funny.
It would be terrifying. No, you're absolutely right. And wow, that's an interesting insight. That is. We'll come back later.
Lest I start crying.
Oh, yeah, okay. Next.
I really do love The Princess Bride. It is quite hilarious.
Oh, it's one of the best movies ever made.
So another one for you, Sean.
Another one for me. Well, let's see. I guess one that I discovered late in life, since don't want to deal with my childhood anymore. One that I saw late in life.
Are we beyond the 70s now?
Oh, we are. Well, the movie is from the 70s, but we are into the late 90s. The Paramount Theater in my hometown of Abilene, Texas. When Halloween rolled around, they understood we want to show a scary movie, but we didn't. There was no blood and and naked nubile women running around and hacking up young virgins, as Roddy McDowell once said. But they picked a movie called The Changeling, starring George C. Scott. John Colicos, for you Battlestar Galactica fans, he played Baltar in the original Battlestar Galactica, was in it. And Melvin Douglas, who is just a wonderful character actor, that was his last movie in '79, because he was a very old, great actor. But the movie is essentially a ghost story. George C. Scott's character loses his wife and daughter in a auto accident, and he moves from New York to Seattle, and he moves into this house that he's going to rent from a historical society. And
it's got great idea written all over it.
And and the house is haunted, and it's basically all about George C. Scott dealing with this haunting, and everything about the haunting is leading him down this detective's path, and it's terrifying. I mean, it really, there are bits of this movie where you're like, oh, and I mean, I'm in my late 20s just sitting here gripping the handles going, oh my god, oh, I mean, it was making, cramps, things would happen on this thing that were so and there's no blood. I mean, it is all done completely with suspense. It's wonderful. I loved it because I hadn't been this scared in a movie in a decade. Because it's a classic ghost story, but it's a ghost story, and that's the great part about it is the story is wonderful. Even up to the ending, you're kind of like, what happened? Oh, and finally when you find out, you're like, whoa, that's neat. At the beginning of the movie, he finds his daughter's ball. And, the ball falls and he picks it up and he has this quick flash of his daughter and he, just puts the ball in a desk that's going to Seattle. And the ghost starts playing with him, and he's sitting there and he's talking about his daughter, and all of a sudden they hear dunk, dunk, dunk coming outside, and they walk out and that ball is falling down from the dark upstairs. And it rolls to his feet and he looks up at it and he hears this laugh in the dark. So he takes it, drives to the Seattle Bridge, throws it off, and he goes home and he's like, there, you're not going to play with me again. Duk, 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 and it rolls up to his foot.
Oh boy.
And it's that, and it's, I'm giving myself chills just thinking about it, because I mean...
Your face is very interesting right now.
It's, I mean...
Your face is always interesting.
Well, thank you. I love my face. But anyway, it's
So
Changeling.
I would say that the ideas are often the scariest part of movies that terrify us.
Absolutely.
Which is another segue into... Scary ideas.
The esoteric horror. What is it in the movies that is scary? What is it the part that scares you the most?
Well, in preparation for this episode, I was thinking about that, and I was never allowed to see any of the traditional scary movies. Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Pinhead, any of those things. Yeah. I was morbidly curious, but I was never allowed to see
It's interesting that you mentioned characters and not titles. You didn't mention their movies, you mentioned them specifically. What does that say?
It says that I can't remember the movies they were in.
I was not allowed to see the movies, and I can't remember the titles. Shut up, I'm talking. Yeah, gotcha, okay.
But when we go to the video rental store, I'd always sneak over to that section, and I'd look at the cover art, or look in the back, like,
yeah,
and read the synopsis.
Because it's
quaking in my boots.
Because for you, it's forbidden fruit. You've got that added element to it. You weren't allowed to know anything about it, so that was like, what is so horrible that I can't know it?
And my imagination has always been overactive, so it was... I don't know, maybe it would have been better if I'd just seen them and decided...
Absolutely. No, it would have. It really, really would have.
But what scared me a lot was the idea, and this is tied to Child's Play, about the serial killing doll
Chucky.
That is inhabited by a spirit of a serial killer or something like that. The idea of inanimate objects being animate and malevolent. Because you say, inanimate objects. You've got Toy Story. You've got
Buzz
Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear.
Exactly. There's a snake in my poop. The point is that we like certain things to be alive in cartoons and things like that. It's not so scary. I used to love this movie called Indian in the Cupboard about a kid who could put toys in there and they would come alive. I loved it.
That was a great story, except that kid annoyed me.
Terrible casting. But anyway.
I like the idea that I saw Darth Vader and RoboCop in the same cupboard.
And the multiverse imploded.
It did.
The point I'm making is that inanimate objects coming to life isn't always scary. But in the context of Child's Play or Chucky, it just, oh my gosh, because I always thought my toys were alive. Stuffed animals, action figures.
You anthropomorphize things. Yeah, so did I.
I did.
I still do.
And so it wasn't much of a logic leap for me to say, oh wow, he's alive and he's bad.
Yeah.
And the scariest parts, I caught some of it on TV because anyway.
You snuck. You snuck in.
Yeah, they would show it on TV.
You hear that, Mrs. Salzbach?
She doesn't listen to the podcast.
Oh, thank God. Okay. She doesn't.
But I saw little bits of it on TV, so it's been edited down. But the scariest parts weren't when Chucky was running around stabbing people. It's when he's sitting there
smiling
with a vacant expression.
Yeah.
And you turn your back on him, and he's gone. It's like,
Did you ever see any of the like Night Gallery episodes where the ventriloquist dummy comes to life?
I was just about to say, ventriloquist dummy is coming to life.
Yeah.
There was a series of books for kids, horror books called Goosebumps.
I remember Goosebumps.
And
yeah,
there was a whole dispute about whether kids should be allowed to read those or not.
Oh, wow.
Night of the Living Dummy terrified the snot out of me.
Really?
Dummies in
You didn't have to blow your nose for months, though.
Thanks a lot, dummy.
Thanks, dummy.
And I think there was an Outer Limits or a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, the Twilight Zone episode.
Probably
yes, I remember
both, where there was something like that. And those things, I don't know how to explain it.
You don't have any talent, Bill. It's all me. I'm the one talking. That kind of guy, yeah.
Maybe it's the vacant expression, nothing behind those eyes.
Nothing behind the eyes, yeah. Well, it's the eyes is the eyes are. I think that
window to the soul.
The eyes being the window to the soul is, I think, an underrated expression, because that kind of goes to something that I've always found terrifying. In fact, even as far back, and this even predates Duel. When I was 2 and 3 years old, there was a.
You can remember that far back?
I can remember things that I can remember things that I saw on TV because it was horribly frightening, and it was just the preview. Of course, when I was 2 or 3, my parents, even then my parents would not let me watch horror movies. But it was a William Shatner movie starring William Shatner and Ernest Borgnine called The Devil's Reign, and it's just it's just your
odd casting combination.
It is a weird casting combination. It's just this weird devil worship cult movie, and it's I've wanted to go back and watch it, but I have a feeling either A, it would trip something in my head that I don't want tripped, or B, I would find it stupid. But there's one quick scene where this face comes out of the darkness and it has no eyes.
Ooh.
Either the eyes have been removed, it was one of the cult members, but it's just this face and this comes out of the dark and it's kind of got this bluish tint. And that image of that face coming out of the dark with no eyes haunted me until I was nearly in my 20s, when I finally didn't have it as a nightmare. I can still recall it right now as vividly as when I saw it when I was 3, because my adrenaline spiked immediately. And I mean, that image would keep me laying awake in bed, because I had a nightlight in my room that cast a shadow across the door going into the hall.
Shadows.
And there was nothing in the there's nothing in the hallway. It was a black panel where the door, because there was no light in the hallway, but my room just set it across there. So I'm laying in my bed looking at this dark void, expecting that face to come out at any minute. And I would lay awake at night. I mean, I would cry almost sometimes. I would have to, and I would be awake all night with that visual. And that led me into why I like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees as characters. I mean, I like them as characters as far as, their stories and stuff. But what makes them scary? They stand out in my mind as something that is scary because the commonality they have. If you look at Michael Myers, that William Shatner mask that he had from the very first movie, you could not see his eyes.
An interesting Shatner thread through horror.
It was, yeah. Shatner is secretly responsible for all of my psychological scarring as a child, I think. I'm sorry, but but it was that William Shatner mask that they hollowed out the eyes, and there were no eyes there. And I think that is what made Michael Myers scary, was the fact that he wasn't human anymore. Because most of what we get as far as emotional feedback from people is from the eyes. You can tell
eyes and eyebrows.
The eyes and the eyebrows, and this whole area of the head is where actors work, and this is where we are human the most. And when that is gone, we're not human anymore, and that, coupled with the being bulletproof and everything, but that is what made him frightening. Same thing with Jason Voorhees. When he got the hockey mask, the Jason Voorhees in part 2, when he just had the thing, that was pretty scary. But the hockey mask always trumped the potato sack in part 2 because you could see his eye.
It sounds like a bizarre game of rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. Hockey mask trumps potato sack. But that's the thing about Jason. When you can't see, and in later movies, they made it to where you could see his eye.
Ooh.
It took it away. It made him, okay, there's an eye back there. There's something. He's indestructible, but I can relate to it now. And that is the fear, because we can't relate to it. There is nothing there that we can latch on to. Even the comfort of a tormentor that is human is not there. You're being pursued by something, and they're even less human than, say, like the Terminator was, because we had Schwarzenegger's one of Schwarzenegger's 3 expressions we always had. So when the humanity is gone from something that is supposed to be human, it's got 2 arms, 2 legs, and a face, but it's not human. In fact, that may even lead into like robophobia.
Okay.
Later on when robots become... In fact, I read an article about this in Omni Magazine where psychologists predict in the future when robots become more prevalent, if we haven't come up with a way to give them body language, people are going to start developing a fear called robophobia, fear of something that mimics humanity but isn't human, and it works on your psychology on such a rudimentary level that it can drive you nuts. And they think that might actually happen one day, and I think this is just a permutation of what that will be.
Well, we already have Roombas that will vacuum the floor.
Yeah, but a Roomba it's a hockey puck. That thing not being human. In fact, if you gave that thing eyes, it would frighten me.
That would be creepy. I think Roomba is pretty cute.
I love Roomba. Yeah, I want to get a Roomba.
But how does it know where to go, Sean?
Infrared technology.
Okay.
And magic dust. and fairies. There's a little fairy driving it around like a car.
Now that works for me.
See, that's better.
I just need you to massage my fears.
That's okay. I'll do it.
Rational or otherwise.
No, hey, I'm always ready to help.
Oh, boy. I still remember when, in Jurassic Park, when Laura Dern's character leans against the door.
Oh, and the arm comes
falls
out.
on.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Arnold. And it's just a gnawed-off arm.
Gnawed-off arm.
And then later, okay, how did that happen? It didn't work. But it was still a little jarring.
Well, that's Steven Spielberg. And, of course, that's a third Steven Spielberg movie that is effective.
Yeah, good point.
Spielberg knows how to push buttons. That has always been... I mean, he's a talented filmmaker, don't get me wrong.
And I didn't even mention Temple of Doom. Oh, good
Lord.
Yeah.
No, mention Temple of Doom real quick.
There's not much I can say except that the heart transplant scene...
Transplant, yeah. Transplant the heart out of the guy into the lava pit.
So, out of anything that I've mentioned so far, Jaws was a real-world fear of, what's in this water?
What's in this water?
But Temple of Doom made me think that if some dude chanted the right words, the skin around my chest cavity would soften, he could reach in and tear my heart out. It just... I can't really articulate it. It still disturbs me.
Well, it's a disturbing premise,
and I've not seen that since.
Oh, you're not seen? Well, Temple of Doom is why we have PG-13 now.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what terrifies you?
Yes, tell us. We want to know. We've rambled enough.
On our YouTube page, if you listen to this podcast there, please leave some comments. You can also visit cinemafilibuster.com and leave comments on specific posts there. If you find us on iTunes, we would love to get feedback. Just a little review, anything to let us know that you're listening.
And good or bad feedback. I mean,
Feedback's feedback at this point.
I mean, unless, of course, you guys want to steal all of our personal information and put it out on the internet. Then we might have a problem.
Well, I think we are divulging bits and pieces of ourselves on every episode.
Of course. That's what this is all about. By the end, by the last episode, you people will know us better than our psychologists do.
The difference is they don't really want to.
The difference is we don't know. You guys see, we don't. I have my own problems. I don't want to deal with yours. But in dealing with our problems, don't you deal with yours.
So true. All right, folks. Well, thank you for listening.
Always thank you.
Until next time, and well beyond, I am Jonathan Sulzbach.
And I am well beyond still, Sean Hastings.
Adios.
Color Us, gone.
And now, the credits. Intro music by Henrik Dibb. Outro music by Matt Steiner. Show concept and creation by Sean Hastings and Jonathan Sulzbach. Find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and of course, cinemafilibuster.com. Leave a comment at any of those venues and we'll read it in a future episode. Thanks for listening.